Hi everyone, welcome to my channel 10 Ways to Wear It, your home for relatable, wearable, and affordable fashion. I'm Alicia, and today's video is probably going to be one of the most serious videos I've ever done. And I'm going to say this straight off the bat. If you are a woman out there who is bleeding heavily and bleeding abnormally, you need to watch this video because it really could save your life. Okay, you all, today's video is going to be a story time, but trust me, as much as I wish it was, it is not clickbait. Everything you're going to hear in today's video is 100% the truth. It is the stories of myself, as well as my twin sister, as well as other friends and family members that I know who have shared their stories with me. Before I jump into the video, I do want to give this disclaimer. I am not a medical professional, so any advice, thoughts, experiences that I express in this video are just my opinions for the most part. Although I have consulted with professionals, professional gynecologists, professional technicians and things like that, I'm going to be basically giving you all my opinion. I am working on a book about this topic, so I am in consultation with professionals regarding this subject. But anything that I talk about in this video, I don't want it to be taken as medical advice or anything like that, even though it's going to be very helpful. So I just have to give that disclaimer, but we're going to go ahead and jump right into the video. So many of you may or may not know, but I am an identical twin. My name is Alicia. My identical twin's name is Elisha. A lot of you may know that she's also a content creator, but she primarily focuses on Instagram. She's a travel vlogger. So if you didn't know, Alicia's an identical twin. I'll insert a photo of us as babies, because a lot of people, they see us and they don't believe that we're identical twins. But trust me, when we were babies, you couldn't tell who was who. But we still look a lot alike, and we sound exactly alike. If we answer the phone, you wouldn't know who you're talking to. But yeah, I am an identical twin. I also have brothers as well. But I want to go ahead and jump right into things, and then, because I don't want this video to be too long, but at the same time I know it's going to be a little bit long. So in about 2020, I started experiencing extreme heavy bleeding during my periods, and my periods were coming like really frequently. You know, a period is only supposed to be a cycle of every 28 days or so, and it's only supposed to be a certain amount of blood that you lose, usually about a pint of blood. Well, I was hemorrhaging during my periods. I would have to literally pack my bag full of pads, heavy flow pads, because normal pads would not do. And honestly, at first I didn't really know what was going on. Of course, I went to the doctor and found out that I had fibroid tumors in my uterus. So, but she's like, you know, a lot of women still have babies with fibroids, like they're manageable, you know, let's try this, let's try that. So I began trying different treatments for my fibroids. She immediately put me on birth control to try to regulate my periods. And then we also tried the Depo-Provera shot, which is a birth control injection, to try to regulate my periods because the birth control pills weren't helping. Literally during this time, I want to tell you guys what was happening to me, and I'm going to give you this disclaimer. If you have not experienced this, then it might be a shock to you, but I was flooding myself. I had no way to prepare some days for the amount of blood that was coming out. Sometimes it would just be a sneeze, sometimes it would just be a certain move, a cough, and I would literally just feel warmth taking over my pants. If you've never experienced this, it is the scariest, most disgusting, terrible thing you have to deal with. I mean, a period is hard enough, but when you are literally hemorrhaging on yourself, there's nothing that can prepare you for that. You know, and I've had my period since I was about 14 years old, you know, and I'm experiencing this in my 40s, in my early 40s, like when I just turned into 40. And it was like, what the hell, you know? And I work in law enforcement, you know, and walking around with blood on you is like, okay, are you hit? You know what I'm saying? Did you get hit out there? You know? So it was rough. I would have to take multiple uniforms to work just in case I would bleed on myself and things like that. So it really became problematic. And so I'm like, I got to figure out a solution to this, because for one, I still want kids. So I don't want to, you know, go right into the hysterectomy, you know, that being the only option. So I really wanted to explore my options. So I kind of got to this place where it was like, well, I'm not going to have a hysterectomy, so I just need to deal with it. That was the wrong decision, you guys. That was the wrong decision. I basically got to this point where I kind of just said, I'm just going to have to deal with it. So like I said, I would just pack my bag full of pads. I would bring extra pants everywhere, have extra clothes in my car in case I would bleed on myself. And I kind of just adjusted to it. And basically what started happening is that I went from having abnormal periods to basically having a period that never went away. It was like I was always bleeding. I would maybe have a day or two where it would stop and then it would start back. And it affected every area of my life. I was uncomfortable working out because if I go to the gym and let's say I'm lifting weights, push too hard, blood's coming out. Or I sit down on the seat, blood might be there. It affected my relationship, my sex life with my ex. Like, you know, it was just really, really problematic. So, but either way, I was still dealing with it. I had no idea what was actually happening to my body until one day I was at work. And like I told you guys, I work in the public sector in law enforcement. And I was at work and I was doing something at work. And I just remember feeling like, I had already been feeling like a little bit winded. But I remember feeling like really, really out of breath. And I was doing like a minor mundane task. And I remember like literally gasping for air. I immediately told my bosses I gotta leave and go to the doctor. So I called my doctor, which I have a really close, good personal relationship with my doctor. She's been my doctor for many, many years. And I called her and she was like, yeah, come see me right now. So I went into her office. We're in the room doing the examination. She's like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna check this, I'm gonna check that. So I was there on her table for about 30 minutes. She checked my vitals initially when I came in. And then maybe 30 minutes later, she checked again. And she's like, your heart rate has not gone down one bit. And you're just sitting here. And, you know, and I've always been a pretty fit person. I've worked out most of my life. You know, my job requires me to be able to move around, lift, and do things. And so I've always been in pretty decent shape. So for me to be out of breath just sitting on her exam table, she knew something was wrong. And thank God I have a doctor that actually acts when something's wrong, because she immediately said, I want you to go to the emergency room. The emergency room from her office is literally like the next building over. So I called my sister. My sister came and got me, took me to the emergency room. I went to a really, really great hospital in the city where I live. Thank God I went there, because probably 30 minutes after I walked in there, they had me under an MRI. And that MRI revealed a few things. It revealed that I had blood clots in my legs, in my lungs, okay? Also, they ran a blood test, and what they saw was that my hemoglobin was at level 7. So a normal weight woman, about 140 pounds, which is way smaller than me, would be 12 or higher. I was at 7. So you guys probably can guess what was happening to me. What I didn't know is that with all that bleeding, I became severely anemic. I barely had any blood in my body. And my blood was so low that it was struggling to pump to my heart. And that's where the shortness of breath came from. Not to mention blood clots in my legs and in my lungs. And it was so interesting because around that time, I remember my ankles kind of swelling a little bit. And I've always had skinny, little scrawny ankles like my mom. And I remember my ankles being kind of fat during that time. And I kind of liked it, you know, because I was like, I always wanted big, sexy ankles. But I remember my ankles being swollen, but it was because the circulation in my legs was bad because of the blood clots in my legs. Basically, what the ER doctors had explained to me, and I explained to them, I flood myself almost every day. It's been going on for about 1.5 years. I've just been dealing with it. And they told me, yeah, it looks like you bled out all your blood. It looks like you bled out all your blood. And now, because your blood is trying to preserve itself, it coagulated, which means it thickened, and then it started to clot. Because when there's so little blood in your body, it's going to thicken. And that alone causes its own issues. But then when it starts to clot, you have the risk of those clots traveling different places like your heart, your brain, so forth. So that's basically what ended up happening to me. I had lost so much blood while just coping with these fibroids that I bled out all my blood, and literally, had I not gone into the doctor when I did, I could have at any point had a heart attack or a stroke. At the point that I went into the doctor, my body was struggling to pump blood to my heart, and that's why I was out of breath so much, and that's also why I was extremely tired. I was always tired during that time, and I just remember barely functioning. Thinking back on it, like after all this happened, and I'm going to tell you guys what happened following my ER visit. I remember barely functioning. I was so tired all the time. I knew something was wrong, but you know, some of us are just conditioned through life to just deal with shit. Like maybe you're sick. Maybe something's bothering you, like a pain that's been sticking around for a while. Maybe you're dealing with a financial issue, but you just kind of suck it up, keep it to yourself, and you deal with it. I have been conditioned throughout my life to be like that. And I'm just now breaking that cycle, because it is a trauma cycle. And I'm just now breaking that. But that's what kind of led to me getting into this position, is that I just became this kind of woman that just deals. And that's a lot of us out there. And I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into that later in the video. But I just dealt, you know. And what I found out through this experience is that there are so many women out there just like me who are walking around bleeding to death and just dealing with it. But we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to tell you guys what happened. After the ER visit, I immediately had to get blood transfusions because I had no blood in my body. So they had to give me like 5 or 6 bags of blood immediately. They also gave me a drug. I cannot recall the name of this drug. If I can find the name of it, I will go ahead and put it on the screen. But this is something that is basically a blood thinner times 100. It's very, very strong. You can't have any injuries on your body when they give it to you, and it's something that basically is designed to halt a possible stroke or heart attack when you have blood clots in your body. So it basically seeks about blast the blood clots. It's like a blood clot blaster basically. And they gave that to me pretty quickly after I got into the emergency room. I was in the hospital for 7 days following that visit. I ended up having a fibroid embolization. That did help me, which is basically cutting off the blood supply to the fibroids. That helped for a little while, and then I remember I was doing well, pretty much having normal periods after that. And I remember being at work one day, maybe like 6 months later, and I like moved a certain way and I flooded myself. So it came back after the embolization. The embolization worked for only about 6 months, and then I was bleeding again. So then back to the drawing board. But thankfully I survived that incident, because what could have happened to me is so many coulda, woulda, shouldas. But what could have happened to me happened to my sister. So before I do get into that, like I said, I had to explore other options. When I started bleeding again, when I tell you the fear that came over me the day I started bleeding again after the embolization, I've never been so scared in my life. I remember being at work and I started to feel like I was getting warm down there, you know, because the blood that's coming out of you is warm. You can feel that warmth when you are on your period and blood gets on your clothes. You can kind of feel the wetness and the warmth of it. And I felt that warmth, and it was very familiar from when I was bleeding before. And I was like, oh my God, because I thought it was over. I thought I was out of the woods. No, I wasn't out of the woods. The fibroids were more powerful. And so I was scared. And so I immediately made an appointment with my gynecologist, and he was like, yeah, we got to take him out. We got to take him out. So that was the next step, to go ahead and proceed with getting rid of the fibroids. And thank God I got them out, because I just knew I couldn't live like that another year. I couldn't subject myself to that lifestyle of dealing with bleeding every day, and the fear of bleeding on myself, and the fear of possibly being hospitalized again. I've never been in the hospital for any reason, so that alone freaked me out like crazy. So I just couldn't deal with that again. I was like, yeah, whatever we got to do at this point. I got to preserve my quality of life. I need to protect my quality of life. I have to go to work for one, you know what I'm saying? My career, I'm pretty young in my career. I've been in my career for about 17 years. Like, I got to work. Like, I can't just be sick and off and disabled. I'm not ready for that. And I have a lot of goals that require money. So I was like, I got to get myself together. So I knew I had to do something at that point. I couldn't just say, oh, you know, I want to have kids. You know, I had to make a decision at that point. So the decision was made to go ahead and remove the fibroids with the myomectomy, and that's what I did. So thank God, that pretty much resolved the issue. The trauma, you guys, that I went through during this period, it's like when you're in it, you don't even realize it, but I missed out going to events. I missed out on so much with my ex because, you know, he would invite me to stuff and I would be bleeding. I'm like, I don't want to bleed on myself, you know, kind of thing. He was so understanding, and I really do appreciate him for that. He's a good guy, and I will always appreciate him because he went through this process with me. But it was rough. It affected so much that I didn't even realize until after I went through all of this. It affected so much of my life. Like, I'm a very social person, I'm an outgoing person, I'm a confident person, but it affected all of that. I didn't want to go nowhere, I didn't want to do nothing, I didn't want to get dressed, I wasn't confident, I didn't feel good about myself, I didn't feel clean, even though I shower every day, twice a day. Like, I just didn't feel like myself. And another thing is the energy level. I had no energy. So I didn't realize all of this until after. It's like you're outside of that window looking in, and that's where I saw, like, God, I really dealt with that for a year and a half. What the fuck was I thinking? It's just crazy when you think about things that you've subjected yourself to that you didn't see while you were in the moment. And so I was just like so surprised. But the reality is, after this happened to me, you know, it definitely started the conversation with my friends, my family, because they all supported me during this time. Unfortunately, nobody could come see me in the hospital because of COVID. It was during COVID that I was hospitalized, so I had no visitors or nothing. Like, but everybody called, they FaceTimed all day, every day. So, but during those conversations talking about what was happening to me, I found out so many of my friends, co-workers, cousins, aunts, my mama, have dealt with something similar, have dealt with either fibroids or polyps and heavy extreme bleeding to the point that they've bled through their clothes. My cousin explained to me one time she bled through an entire winter coat. One of my close friends from school, she told me she bled for a year straight until a doctor that she worked with finally, she's a nurse, and a doctor that she worked with finally gave her a myomectomy as well, removed her fibroids. Just a lot of people that I know, a coworker of mine who suffers from polyps in the uterus, which are similar to fibroids, but the way they position themselves in the uterus are different. But they all explained to me that they bled like crazy. And so I just was shocked to find that so many women are suffering this way, and they're just dealing with it just like I was, just going to work every day, packing a bag full of pads, you know, carrying an extra bag with clothes, this, that, used to covering up after they bleed on themselves, you know, used to going to the bathroom and there's blood everywhere. My mom dealt with that. Like, it's crazy. And, you know, for all the women out there who are dealing with this right now, oh my God, it makes me so emotional because you don't have to. There are solutions out there for you, especially now they're coming up with a lot of clinically tested drugs for fibroid treatment to help with the heavy bleeding and regulate bleeding and so on. There's so much research now out there, but you know, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know what was happening to me. So now we're going to go ahead and fast forward to 2023. Towards the end of 2023, you know, me and my sister, we're really close. My sister literally lives down the street from me. Like, her apartment is just a block away from me. And so we used to live in the same building, upstairs and downstairs from each other. And we were really close. So I would notice that my sister would come over a lot and she would ask for pain pills for cramps. And she would say, oh, you have some Aleve? I got cramps. And I would tell her, you know, you just said you had cramps like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Like, you sure your periods are not too close together? You know, because now, after what happened to me, I pay attention to other people. So I'm like, and she's like, no, it was a month ago. I'm like, no, you were just over here asking for a leave. You know, I'm worried that you're bleeding this much. Like, your period shouldn't be every 2 weeks. If it's every 2 weeks, something's wrong. So, you know, I just thought, yeah, you know, but she's a grown woman. She knows what's going on with her body. Maybe I'm not calculating right. Maybe she knows, you know, when her last period was. In my mind, I thought you were just asking for pills. And I was pretty sure of that. But so that happened a few times. She would come over a lot and she'd be asleep. And I'd say, hey, you fell asleep during the movie. Yeah, I got cramps. I'm tired. I'm cramping. So it was a few times where I told my sister, like, I feel like your periods are too close together. You know what happened to me? You got to be careful with that. Like, maybe you need to go to the doctor. I recommended it a few times, but I didn't push the issue. I didn't push. So, moving into 2024 now, this was going on at the end of 2023. Moving into 2024, you know, it was still going on, but because my sister's not my daughter, even though I'm her big sister, I'm 1 minute older, I couldn't press as much as I wanted to. I didn't press as much as I wanted to, I'll say that. And I remember on May 23rd, 2024, about 6 something in the morning, my sister texted me and she said, I think I almost just had a stroke. I couldn't move for like 2 minutes. And I texted her back and I said, well, you need to immediately go to the hospital. And I told her the hospital I went to where I had my issue, you know, they took good care of me. I told her you need to immediately go to that hospital, which is Huntington Memorial Hospital in Pasadena, California. So that's where I wanted her to go because they took such good care of me. So I was like, you need to go to Huntington Memorial right now if that's the case. So she didn't text me back. I'm thinking, okay, she's going to drive herself to the ER. But she's the one that took me to the ER. She didn't. She went to work. And I think I wasn't present for this, but I think what happened at work is that she ended up falling out. They called the ambulance and they took her to the hospital. It was immediately determined that my sister was having a stroke because when she would smile, you could see the drooping in her face. You could see the drooping in her eye and in her smile. I don't know why that hospital they took her to didn't act sooner. We're looking into that with an attorney right now. They left her in the lobby for a long time. They left her on a gurney in the hallway for about 9 hours without acting. At this point, me, my dad, my brother are there, and she's still talking, she's laughing, she's joking, she's taking selfies, she's making videos, she's cool. But there is facial drooping. But I'm assuming that because they took her away a couple of times doing stuff. So I'm assuming they're doing an MRI, they're checking her, you know, they're checking her, drawing blood, this, that. But I did feel like it's a long time for her to still be sitting. But anyway, so since my sister was still talking and so forth, because, you know, there are different levels of stroke. So I thought she was having a minor stroke at that time. We ended up leaving after being there for about 7 hours. I said, okay, I'll be back first thing in the morning. I'm not going to go to work. About 5 o'clock in the morning, I got a call from a doctor saying that we're transferring your sister to USC Keck Medical Center because she had a massive stroke. I gotta get some tissue. So once I got that call, you know, I called my dad, called my mom, everybody, and I immediately went to the hospital. They told me that the next of kin needed to make some decisions because my sister's brain was swelling. So my parents, of course, they let me act as the next of kin since that's my twin. And the doctor wanted to know, basically get my consent to a craniotomy because my sister's brain was swelling to the extent that she could have brain bleed because her brain had no room to swell. So they're basically asking me if she can have part of her skull removed to allow for her brain to swell, because if not, she could have brain bleed, which could leave her completely brain damaged. So of course I said yes, please do anything to save my sister. So they proceeded with the craniotomy. I still hadn't seen her to that point. I went to the hospital. We still hadn't seen her because she was in surgery. It was a long surgery. When I say nothing could prepare me for what I saw when I saw my sister, because we're twins, and it was like looking in a mirror, seeing my sister. Whew. They removed part of her skull, so her head was wrapped up. She had a tube going in her head. She had a breathing tube down her throat. She had a thing in her nose for oxygen. She basically wasn't breathing on her own at that time. She didn't start breathing on her own. They removed that breathing tube maybe like a few days later. She still had to keep the drain in her head. I will insert an image right now for you guys. Just I'm giving this disclaimer. If you don't like to see things that are medically disturbing, then you may want to look away or skip this part. But this is how my sister looked when I saw her. And this is a completely, from what I knew, healthy woman. Independent as you will ever meet. Feisty, smart. My sister works for NASA. She's pretty sharp. And this is how she was. The shock, the trauma, the hurt, the fear that I felt is indescribable. But I was just thankful that my sister was still alive. I never imagined that from what I saw when I left the first hospital at night, when me, my dad, and my brother left, from what I saw the next day when they called me, it was like, I can't even describe it. But anyway, my sister had a massive stroke. What they discovered was that her hemoglobin was 4.5. So like me, she had bled out most of her blood. My sister had a myomectomy, a removal of her fibroids, maybe like 12, 13 years ago, where her fibroids returned. And she was experiencing heavy and abnormal bleeding like I thought. She basically bled out all her blood like me. And what resulted with a 4.5 hemoglobin was blood clots and coagulated blood. So, fortunate for me, I went to the doctor when I was just experiencing heavy breathing. And they caught it in time to give me something to stop any further blood clots from forming and from them from traveling into my brain or into my heart. Unfortunate for her, she didn't catch it in time. So her blood clots had traveled to the brain. And so it resulted in a massive stroke. My sister lost the mobility of her left side, which we are working to get back now. She's in physical and occupational therapy. She was in the hospital from May 24th. She was in the main hospital May 24th to June 21st. After that, she was in a skilled nursing facility from June 21st till about September 2nd. From there, she went to an acute intense rehab from September 2nd to about September 18th. And then from then, she's been home until now. She currently lives with my cousin. And she is basically under 24-hour care with my cousin and her family. And my aunt lives there as well, one of my aunts, my mom's sister. So they take care of her, and we all as a family help with her care. We go over and ensure that my cousin has time for herself, and that, everybody is visiting, helping out with my sister. Like I said, she does get physical and occupational therapy. I'll go ahead and insert some images just for you all to see what her therapy is like. It's very intense. It's very hard on her. My sister has to live every day with knowing that she's gone from being completely independent to being completely disabled. She's basically having to figure out how to do everything again with that left side being deficient. There's a lot of neglect on that left side. But thank God she is making progress. She is making progress. Thank you, Lord. She's making progress. So I know that was a lot, you guys, and it was long. But I needed to share that because I think it's just so critical for everybody out there to see what can happen if you don't address your heavy bleeding from your fibroids or possibly polyps, endometriosis. There's a lot of different things that can cause heavy bleeding. My fibroids, I just had 3 that were the size of oranges, and the havoc they wreaked on my body is something that has me completely traumatized. Thank God today I have a normal hemoglobin. I am not anemic. I've never suffered from anemia prior to fibroids, and I don't suffer from it now. My sister never suffered from anemia prior to her fibroids. She doesn't suffer from it now. Her last hemoglobin check was 12.5, which is above normal. We've never suffered from any type of blood clot disorder in our family history or within ourselves. So this was completely caused by the fibroids. When they removed my fibroids, they took a picture of them. And like I said, there were 3 of them about the size of small oranges, or like maybe those little cuties, the oranges. And yeah, the havoc that they wreaked on my body. Basically what my gynecologist said, my surgical gynecologist who also performed the surgery for me, he said that it's the disturbance of the fibroids being in the uterus that causes the uterus to consistently thicken the lining, versus your uterus just thickening your uterine lining once a month when you ovulate and then it dispels from your body. Because the fibroids are there, it's almost like your body thinks it's pregnant, or it's just a foreign matter there. And so your body constantly thickens the lining of the uterus. And what that results in is more blood. And one thing that I always thought growing up, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought period blood was like its own little tank. Like, it's just, this is the period blood and this is the rest of my blood. It's not the same thing, because I'm only going to bleed out this. No. All of that blood is period blood. Basically, period blood is produced from all of the blood in your body. So if you are bleeding out tons and tons of blood, that's just not a little tank that's being emptied of period blood. It's coming from your whole body, and it will make you anemic. And so that's something that I learned. I guess I just never really educated myself about that. But I just want you guys to know out there that if you're experiencing heavy bleeding, whatever the cause may be, that blood is your blood from your whole body, and it will make you anemic. So if you're experiencing tiredness, low iron deficiency, if you're experiencing, just being ill, like not feeling well all the time, if you are, there's just a lot of symptoms to anemia. If you experience like whiteness in the fingertips and things like that, constantly cold on your limbs, especially your extremities like your hands and feet, those are signs that possibly could show anemia. You need to go to the doctor and get your blood checked and make sure that your hemoglobin has not dropped too low to the point that your blood will start to thicken and possibly clot, because this shit is real. And the neurologist, who is my sister's treating neurologist, she said that what she's finding is that a lot more fibroid patients are having strokes. Okay, something that people never really put together, but they're putting it together now. That these women with fibroids and with polyps and things like that, endometriosis, scar tissue in the uterus, they are losing so much blood that it is producing strokes. Especially when you combine severe anemia with things like high blood pressure and hypertension, where your blood really doesn't pump the way it's supposed to already. So then when you lose so much blood, it really ups the possibility of you having a stroke. So it's just important, ladies, that for one, you get your annual physical. And this is something that a simple physical would have caught this for my sister. They would have seen by a simple blood test that her hemoglobin was way too low. And she would have immediately been admitted to a hospital and given blood transfusions. They would have immediately told her, look, you got to get a hysterectomy or a myomectomy. You got to get something done because you're bleeding too much. All of that could have been prevented with a simple annual physical or a blood test. So I cannot stress enough, if you are not getting your annual exams, your annual physicals, when you get to a certain age, you should be getting a mammogram. And then when you get to a certain age again, you should be getting colonoscopies. If you're not getting that done, you don't know what's wrong with you. And it could be something that is preventable that can save your life. I try not to tell my sister this, but I have stated to her, if you had gone to the doctor, this could have been prevented. Me and my sister keep it real with each other. And, part of my dealing with this trauma was to say that to her. And even she has said that to herself, that if I had just gone to the doctor, this could have been prevented. So, ladies, it's so important. I almost want to cry telling y'all, it's so important to go to the doctor and get checked. Especially if something's wrong and you feel like something's off. Go to the doctor. I dealt with my issue way longer than I should have. Other friends and family that I've talked to, they dealt with it way longer than they should have. Women are literally out here bleeding to death, dying, not realizing, having strokes, not realizing that the fibroids are causing it. And it's just sad because it's something that's so preventable. So I'm here to tell you ladies today, go to the doctor. If you're bleeding heavy or your periods are not coming within that normal range of 24 to 28 days, that cycle, and if you're bleeding out, you're bleeding more than 1.5 pints of blood, you need to go to the doctor. You really, really need to go to the doctor. Ooh, child. Ooh, y'all. Ooh, y'all. Okay. All right. I'm trying to laugh to not cry no more, y'all. But before I wrap up the video, I do want to give some, I don't know if you would call this education, but I just want to share a little bit more, just in case there's some lady out there watching this video who has no clue about some of the terms that I've talked about. So fibroids are basically non-cancerous, tumors that exist in the uterus. They can exist in the uterine lining. They can exist in the cervix. They can exist in the ovaries. They can attach themselves to other things. One of my aunts, her fibroids attached to her rectum. So when she had them removed, they had to remove part of her rectum. They can attach to your intestines. They can attach to your ovaries. They can swallow your ovaries and consume your ovaries. They can exist while you're pregnant. They can grow at the same rate as your baby. One of my friends, her sister was pregnant and she had fibroids, and the fibroid was growing the same rate as the baby was growing. So she looked like she was having twins when really she just had a baby and a fibroid in her uterus. I'm going to insert an image or some images of what fibroids look like right now. If you are easily grossed out or disgusted, you may want to look away at this point. But this is basically what fibroids look like, and also an image of how they kind of embed themselves into the uterus, sometimes into the uterus lining and things like that. So fibroids, like I said, are non-cancerous tumors that exist in the reproductive organ. Polyps are similar to fibroids. They also embed themselves in the wall of the uterus lining. They can embed themselves in the other areas of the reproductive system. I'm going to insert an image right now of what polyps look like. They also can be very problematic. They can cause extreme or abnormal bleeding. They can cause pain, heavy cramping even when you're not on your cycle. Both of these things can cause a lot of problems and also a lot of pain. They can cause pain during sex. They can cause, just a lot of issues for women. So polyps are another issue that can cause heavy bleeding. Another thing that can cause heavy bleeding is endometriosis. That is basically scar tissue in the reproductive organs. That can be caused by untreated STDs. That can be caused by treated STDs. That can be caused by surgeries. They can be caused by childbirth. Endometriosis, so it's basically anything that can cause trauma to the reproductive area. That can be the cervix, the uterus, and basically that scar tissue becomes like a foreign matter, almost like the fibroids or the polyps. And so all of these things together can work against your body, convincing your body that it's either pregnant or just causing your body to produce a lot of excess blood during your period cycle, and it can cause abnormal period cycles that come too frequently. Some people just completely bleed non-stop. Like I said, a friend of mine bled for an entire year. One of my cousins, she also bled for an entire year. So it can cause you to have non-stop periods once that foreign matter is in your reproductive organs. For me, I was having little short spurts of not bleeding, but I was just bleeding pretty consistently as well. So I just wanted to give some education in case you've never heard these terms or you have no clue what I'm talking about. You hear the word tumors in the uterus and automatically assume that it's like cervical cancer or cancerous tumors. No, that is not always the case. But yeah, it's important that we all be educated about this for ourselves, for our daughters, for our nieces, for our aunts, for all the older women, younger women, everybody. We all need to be educated. But most importantly, what is important for you to take away from this video is that if you are experiencing any type of heavy or abnormal bleeding, you need to go to the doctor and get your hemoglobin checked. Make sure that you're not anemic and that you're not bleeding out all of your blood to the point that you can possibly put yourself at risk for a heart attack or a stroke. I wanted to share this with you guys. I got permission from my sister to share her story. If you would like to see her recovery or just become friends with her, follow her, she has her own Instagram account. It's called Discovering Eli. I'm going to put that on the screen right now. I'm also going to put a link to her channel, or her page, in the description and in a pinned comment for you guys. But I would encourage you to, go and follow her just to show her that support. She's really been trying to reach a certain milestone on Instagram for a while, and so it would really show her a lot of support if you can go and follow her. I'll also link her GoFundMe. The recovery for my sister is very much ongoing. She is on complete leave without pay, complete disability. So, her income has definitely been cut. Thankfully, we're still holding on to her job, hoping that one day she'll be well enough to get back there, but she's got a long recovery ahead. She needs a lot of equipment. She needs a lot of help. We had to move her out of her second-story apartment because they didn't have an elevator, so we're going to have to look for her a new first-floor apartment. So she needs help, okay? She needs help more than I can give because I'm going broke helping this girl. So if you'd like to donate to her GoFundMe, I'm also going to leave that in the description of this video and also in a pinned comment. But I want to thank you guys for checking out this video. I really wanted to share this. I went back and forth about sharing my personal business online, but honestly, I don't think it's a big deal. If I could help a woman or save a woman out there from going through what I went through and just suffering on a day-to-day basis, then I'm gonna do that. Okay? Take y'all asses to the doctor. Okay? Especially if you're out there bleeding. But definitely stay tuned for my book. I am writing it in collaboration with several professionals who have volunteered to help me for free to write this book and to give their expert advice. So these are doctors and technicians and so on that are going to help me to give the expert advice along with the different stories of women in my life who have experienced something similar. So I think this is going to be really, really helpful because there's just so many people suffering in silence. And, I just want to help everybody that I can and save everybody that I can. I don't want anybody out there to lose the mobility of one side or both sides of their body like my sister has. She lost her left side. She's trying to recover that feeling on the left side. I wouldn't want that to happen to even my worst enemy. And it's happened to my sister. So, God bless you guys. I love y'all. Make sure you subscribe before you go. And I'll see you on the next one. I promise you, it'll be a lot lighter than this video. But thank y'all for listening. Love you guys. Bye.